From my own studies of the subject, it seems that nothing whatsoever has changed in the relationship between Mohammedan Islam and the news media over the last 1400 years. Do you agree?
Your observation is of course accurate, since the followers of Muhammad are actually his clones. They have no choice as believers but to follow in his footsteps, his sunnah, and ape and imitate all his actions, thoughts and deeds, since he is supposed to be the most perfect male human being in all creation. Our listeners should be made aware that the only news media among the tribes of Arabia were their poets. It was they who memorized the lineage of the tribe, its history, its deeds, and its myths. They were the ones who, by their poetry and or oratory, disseminated the current affairs of their day. The poets of the tribe were held in immense esteem and awe, since an excellent poet of a small tribe could be more lethal than all the forces of a bigger tribe with a mediocre poet. Poets invariably extol the virtues of their tribe or those of certain individuals, be they ordinary men or kings. At the annual fair of Ukaz, held during the forbidden months, poets vied with each other in public contests that could bring great honor to them and their tribe when they won. Among the ancient Arabian odes, 7 were legendary and held first place and were called mu'allaqat, meaning suspended. They were magnificent poems composed by some of the most illustrious poets of Arabia long before Muhammad. In the Arab world, they are honored as masterpieces of poetical composition. The days before Islam are called in Arabic al-Jahiliyyah, meaning the time of ignorance or barbarity. However, it was during this alleged time of ignorance that many of the best and most beautiful Arabic poetry were conceived, a fact recognized even by the Muhammadan Muslims themselves. No poets during the whole period of pagan Arabia were murdered for their poetry. This would have been unthinkable and almost sacrilegious. Unfortunately, Muhammad changed all these rules and prohibitions because they did not suit him or his agenda. As will be shown in the following ahadith, Muhammad sanctions the murder and assassination of any and all those who satirized or disagreed with him and his ideas. He instigated their butchery, be they men or women, free or slave, young or old. He exhibits a pathological and depraved indifference to human suffering, human rights, justice, and morality. Those of his followers who were willing to commit these crimes at his prompting did so with incredible cowardice, invariably against unarmed civilians in the dead of night. Muhammad was an equal opportunity destroyer of all those who did not accept his belief system. Even today, in the 21st century, his followers exhibit exactly the same symptoms all over the world. Ibn Ishaq 597. When the apostle returned to Medina after his raid on Taif, word spread that he killed some of the men who had satirized and insulted him. The poets were left spread in all directions. Ka'b al-Ashraf began publishing poems about the wives of the Muslims. He referred to the wives of Muslims and damaging their honor. In other poems, he would curse the poet, ridicule him, and say improper things about him. In a third type of poem, he would curse the Prophet's companions and compare them to animals, dogs, sheep, and camels. This was a type of insult. The Arabs of those times loved poetry. As the verse says, poetry is the language of the Arabs. For Arabs, poetry is sharper than the sword. Ishaq 368. Ka'b's body was left prostrate, humble in submission. Sword in hand, we cut him down. By Muhammad's order, we were sent secretly by night. Brother killing brother. We lured him to his death with guile, cunning, and deviousness. Traveling by night, bold as lions, we went into his home. We made him taste death with our deadly swords. We sought victory for the religion of the Prophet. We carried Ka'b's head and brought it to Muhammad during the night. We saluted him as he stood praying and told him that we had slain Allah's enemy. When he came out to us, we cast Ashraf's head before his feet. The Prophet praised Allah that the poet had been assassinated and complimented us on the good work we had done in Allah's cause. Again and again and again, The degree of cowardice and duplicity exhibited by Muhammad and his followers is unbelievable. They always murdered, assassinated, or slaughtered their defenseless and unsuspecting victims, invariably unarmed civilians, but at the same time boasted that they were bold as lions. Even today, 1400 years later, nothing whatsoever has changed in the character of the male Muhammadan Muslims. They still butcher their manacled and defenseless victims on television while boasting about their own bravery. Ishaq 676. Asma bint Marwan, the poetess, in protest over the cowardly assassination of Ka'b al-Ashraf, said to her people, "You obey a stranger who encourages you to murder for booty. You are greedy men. Is there no honor among you?" Upon hearing those lines, Muhammad said, "Will no one rid me of this woman?" Umayr, a zealous Muslim, decided to execute the Prophet's wishes. That very night, he crept into the writer's home while she lay sleeping surrounded by her young children. There was one at her breast. Umayr removed the suckling babe and then plunged his sword into the poet. The next morning in the mosque, Muhammad, who was aware of the assassination, said, "You have helped Allah and His Apostle." Umayr said, "She had 5 sons. Should I feel guilty?" "No," the Prophet said. "Killing her was as meaningless as 2 goats butting heads." No prophet in recorded human history ever acted with such depraved, pathological indifference towards other human beings. Muhammad is the only alleged, divinely inspired messenger who acted in such manner. Only after studying in depth the subjects of the Quran, Ahadith, Arab and Islamic history could one come to the one and only logical conclusion that explains all the hate-mongering, warmongering, immorality, injustices, inconsistencies, absurdities, historical dislocation, theological contortions, grammatical errors, mendacities and stupidities that fill the Quran and Hadiths, which is that every letter, every word, every verse ayah, and every chapter surah in the Quran could not have been revealed by any omniscient, compassionate, and merciful divinity, because it is in reality the product of Muhammad's own ideas, hatreds, lusts, anger, jealousy, fears, cowardice, and immorality, in other words, his own alter ego, but cleverly projected into the unsuspecting mouth of Allah, the pagan Arabian supreme rock god of the Quraysh, embedded into the corner wall of the Kaaba called the Black Stone. In a nutshell, Muhammad, Gabriel, Satan, and Allah are one and the same. They are all manifestations of Muhammad's own invented personal cult belief system.